What's going on, everyone? It is the Derv, and in today's video I am wrapping up my Edge of Fate for Beginners little mini series. And in today's video we're going to go through how to set up your character to have a respectable build as you're going through all of these XP style grinds. Whether you are going through just the campaign, maybe you've switched over to Legendary or are doing Legendary, and you're increasing your portal difficulty for the activities that you're picking, we're going to have to go through how to set up your character with all of the new armor stat breakdowns. As you guys know, the stats have changed a little bit as far as what they can do for you. And the most common question I've gotten is, Derv, how can I set my character up to still have the most, or at least a semi-ideal or respectable build without having the most ideal or respectable armor yet available? So I'm going to break it down for you guys to hopefully make it make sense so that you guys can have some confidence regardless of your class. Let's get it going. So before we get into what each stat is going to bring to your character and how to balance it all out, regardless of what class you're in, I'm going to briefly touch on tiers for the armor that's going to drop during the various activities that you might find yourself in. This is going to be more of just a general knowledge bit of the video than it is a complete focus, because tiers are going to drop based on your level of gameplay anyways. So you may not get to this until latter parts of the game in which you are a much higher light level and you are starting to focus on specific armor roles. So we're going to go through it real quick. Tier 1 armor can drop from 52 to 57 stat total. Tier 2 can drop from 58 to 63 stat total. Tier 3 can drop from 64 to 69 stat total. Tier 4 can drop from 70 to 75 stat total with 11 mod energy. And Tier 5 can drop with 75 stat total, 11 mod energy, and a tuning mod slot. Exotic armor can only roll up to Tier 2. So if you're planning to use exotic armor, plan accordingly. New exotic armor obviously will drop according to the archetype though. So just keep that in mind as you go forward. Again, this might not be information you necessarily need right now. And if you're just leveling up and you're just getting started and you're just trying to grind away at that light level to get yourself much higher in power, take that and just kind of put that in the back of your mind and reference that and focus on that once you get to the higher light levels. So let's get into real quick the ghost mod here and talk about what the change is for how the armor rolls. So in the third mod slot, you can, of course, put Glimmer Boost, you can put Bountiful Harvest, and you can put Public Defender. But we're going to focus on the armor mod slots. Now, previous to this season, armor mod slots used to guarantee spikes in one specific stat. Thinking mobility, resilience, discipline, etc., etc. Now it's going to focus on archetype. So you see here, I've got the Paragon armor. Acquired armor pieces with randomized stats are more likely to drop with the Paragon archetype, which has super as its primary stat and melee as its secondary stat. This means that is how it's going to drop when the ghost mod influences how it's dropped. If you're trying to focus on Paragon, you're going to want to put this one on. Over here, we've got the Gunner armor, which has weapons as its primary stat and grenade as its secondary. Over here, we've got the Bulwark, which has health as its primary stat and class as its secondary. Here we've got the Specialist armor, which has class as its primary stat and weapons as its secondary. Next up, we have the Grenadier, which has the grenade as its primary stat and super as its secondary stat. Last but not least, we have the Brawler armor, which has melee as its primary stat and health as its secondary. Now, this doesn't guarantee that every piece of armor that drops is going to automatically be put in this category. As you've noticed by now, if you've been playing for a little bit, you're still going to get rare armor drops. These are only going to apply to legendary armor drops, in which the ghost mod is going to influence how they drop. There's going to be a third stat spike though, and it's going to be randomized. So realistically, if you're trying to budget for what you're going to get, you're going to have to kind of focus on the ghost mod initially. Once you get further into the tier system and the level rewards for the activities that you're running. Right now, just use this as kind of general knowledge so that once you get to those higher levels, or maybe you get a piece of armor, you're like, whoa, I like the way that this looks. I like the stats that I got. Maybe I got lucky and it's one of the higher stat totals that I could get for the tier that it's at. Let's save this. Let's maybe masterwork it, try to incorporate it into my build, and so on and so forth as you go. But right now, your goal is to just set your armor up to give your stats the most balance as possible for your character. So it's not imperative that you keep focusing on and looking at these archetypes going up. Here we go. I got another wrong archetype. That's not really what you should be focusing on now. Just focus on the power level increase from infusing your armor. And if you happen to get lucky with a lower tier stat total that really fits your build, then use it and masterwork it. Real quickly, I just want to give a quick glimpse as to the different colored armors that you're going to get. You're going to get rare armor, which is going to be, of course, this light blue. The rare armor is not going to have an archetype, so the only thing you should be using this armor for is to boost the overall light level of given pieces. The other stat is going, or the other armor type is, of course, going to be legendary. Legendary is going to roll with specific archetypes. You can see on the screen right here, I've got a gunner. So my primary weapon boost is going to be weapons, or my primary stat boost is going to be in weapons. My secondary is going to be in grenade. And the tertiary for this roll came out in class. Now, it could either be class, super, melee, or health. So as you're getting these rolls, if you get a stat bump to a stat that you have been looking for while also getting the stat spikes that you're trying to grind for, that might be one piece of armor that you want to keep and later use in future builds. Or if you know kind of where you're going with your build right now, a gunner mod or a gunner helmet like this with the stats in the specific stat groups for the tertiary one, which is class, of course, in this one, may very well benefit what you're trying to do at this given time. But if it doesn't, just use this legendary piece of armor for infusion if you don't see yourself using these stat spikes for the way that you want to play in the future once you get to a little bit higher light level. And you can see the total is 57. Real quickly, I'm going to go through the different tiers and what that means to you. I just went through and showed you that this helmet specifically had a 57 level stat spike, or 57 stat roll, I guess I should say. The total number of stats totals 57. Here is why. Here is how tiers work and why you're not necessarily going to want to hold on to your tier 1 or maybe even tier 2 gear right out the bat, possibly even tier 3 once you get to the higher levels, because you can get more stat rolls in those stat spikes for the given archetype. Tier 1 is going to be 52 to 57 stat total. So it just so happens on this helmet, it's a tier 1. I got the max, which was 57. Tier 2 is going to be 58 to 63 stat total. Tier 3 is going to be 64 to 69 stat total. Tier 4 is going to be 70 to 75 stat total with 11 mod energy. Tier 5 is going to be 75 stat total, 11 mod energy, and a tuning mod slot. So in my opinion, tiers 1 through 3, unless you get an absolute banger roll that you have been desperate for, use those for infusion to faster level yourself up so you can get higher tiers of armor to drop more frequently. Exotic armor can only roll up to tier 2. If you are planning to use exotic armor, plan accordingly. New exotic armor will drop according to the archetypes though, so keep that in mind. So now that we've gone through a couple of general understandings of how you can get passive stat boosts, as well as start to shape the armor that you receive, and what to do when you get rare armor, and the different tier levels that armor can actually come with, and how it all is really going to work in the end once you get to higher levels, let's get into what each stat is going to actually give you and how it compares to the seasons past. Up first, we've got health. Increase the amount of health you gain each time you pick up an orb of power. Reduces flinch from incoming fire while aiming a weapon. Now, in the past seasons, your health per orb was somewhere in the neighborhood of about 50. So, one of the things that I need to point out right now, and I'm going to put a little caption on the screen is 70 is essentially the new 100. The more stats you can get to 70, the more average you're going to be in terms of comparison to 100 stat spikes in previous seasons. So right off the bat, health per orb is plus 50.4. Again, our health is going to be out of 200. So having 50 as your health per orb that you pick up, and hopefully you're generating a lot of them, is going to be very sufficient right out the gate, even in legendary difficulty style campaign levels. Next up, we're going to come up to melee. Melee is now the new strength. As I stated previously, 70 is the new 100. At 70, your melee energy regeneration is going to be approximately 100%. Your melee ability cooldown, of course, is going to translate to the higher the stat number, the different the cooldown is going to be. But what's important to note is melee energy being at 190% means that you are going to get 190% of the energy return for melee from all sources. So if you have weapons that have pugilist on them, if you pick up orbs of power, if you have mods on your armor that reflect back to gaining increased melee regeneration, before it used to just be a flat amount. Now it's going to be that flat amount plus an additional 90%. And of course, if you happen to get above a 100 in a stat like this, you'll get enhanced benefits. But for the sake of the video and understanding the balance that you probably want to strike right out the gate, I'm going to skip over enhanced benefits with the exception of just talking about them. The enhanced benefit for getting melee above a 100 level is going to, in this case, increase the damage done by your melee attacks. Damage at 107 is going to give you plus 2% PvE and plus 1% PvP. So if you don't get over 100 in your melee stat and you only get at a 70 for your melee stat, you're going to still get benefits to your character comparable to previous seasons. So whether that's 100% at 70 or like what I have at 190% at 107, you're still, anything above a 70 is going to be icing on the cake, so to speak, for you. Next, we're going to go and look at grenade. Reduce your grenade ability cooldown, increases the amount of grenade energy from all sources. Your grenade ability cooldown is going to be directly correlated to the stat that you get it to. Right now I'm at 84. So if we're going on the assumption that 70 is the new 100, right now my grenade energy gets back plus 143%. That means not only does it regenerate as fast as it did in previous seasons from all sources, thinking demolitionist, thinking armor mods that increase your ability regen for grenades specifically, now I'm going to get an additional 43% back from all sources. So think of, for Warlock, like conduction tines from the Crown of Tempest. That's going to directly relate to where your stat is. So any stats or armor mods or exotics that directly affect the regeneration of any given ability is going to correlate directly with your stat, whether that is grenade or melee like we just discussed. So at 84, I've got 143% grenade energy regeneration. That means if you are at 70, you're going to be sitting right around 100. And if you have other stat spikes in future stats we're going to go through, you're going to get increased benefit. Remember, every stat number is going to give you a different benefit. So if it was 85, you would be slightly higher on grenade energy regeneration, maybe 144 or 145, so on and so forth. So if you don't have 80 grenade, that's fine. If you can get to 70 grenade, you'll still get the returns as though it was 100% of what it was previous seasons. Next, we've got super. Increase the amount of super energy from all sources. This is going to be a popular one people are going to want to spec into. You can see right now my super energy recharge rate is sitting at 169%. That's at 93. If I really wanted to spec into this, I could reach this over 200% once we get over a 100 stat line for super. Super mods, by the way, are only 3 energy costs now on any given piece of armor. There are no longer any 4 energy mod costs that you have to negotiate with that's going to make it harder to put mods onto your armor. So that is one good quality of life that changed for your Guardians, regardless of class. So if you are down at a 70, also known as a T7, tier 70, you're still going to get 100% of your super energy return, as is customary with having a 100 in a previous season. Next, we've got class ability. Reduces your class ability cooldown, increases the amount of class ability energy provided from all sources. Now, if you're like me and you use Phoenix Dive as a class ability, you may not necessarily care about dumping a lot of stats into this. However, if you are a Warlock who uses Hellion, if you're a Titan who uses Barricade, if you are a Hunter who loves to dodge, now class is specific to class. It is no longer tied to a different stat grouping. And I'm thinking specifically for like Titans with resilience. Resilience and your class regeneration rate were the same thing. Now they are completely separated. Same thing with mobility and your dodge for Hunters. Now they are completely separated. Same thing with your Rift and or Phoenix Dive for your Warlock. Now they are completely separated from recovery. So keep that in mind. If you don't use your class ability a lot, this might be a stat where you don't necessarily care if you have it. So I know you see my stats on the screen here. You see where I'm kind of prioritizing. I'm also limited to last season's armor and shaping that to try to get my stats into a respectable fashion as I'm leveling up my character. Last but not least is weapons. Now, weapon damage, unlike all of these others, is going to be increased by that amount based on your level. Your weapons will have a 100 damage, a T100 damage, or T10 from previous seasons. You're going to get 100% of the damage you're used to getting from the weapons from previous seasons. However, weapons character stat specifically increases weapon reload speed and handling, and increases weapon damage against minor and major combatants. So when you're looking at this from a logical standpoint, do you have to spec into weapons right away? Right away, I'm going to say no. The reason is you're not taking on heavy DPS phase style encounters. You're trying to get through the campaign. You're trying to get through the portal activities. You're trying to maybe try your hand at legendary operations or the campaign. Or maybe you're shooting for pinnacle ops and you're just going through it at a slower pace. Weapon damage at +7 1%. Compared to what someone is firing at you to your left with a plus, let's just say 10%, it's a 3% difference. So if you don't have the perfect weapons character stat spike that you want, does it really matter at this stage of the game? My personal opinion, and you guys can debate me in the comments on this, is no. Even if my damage is at +0% and someone had it at a +10%, you're talking about 1 extra bullet for every 10 shots. Oh! Is that really going to affect how quickly you take down a Minotaur in Pinnacle Operations? Is that really going to affect how you take down a champion in legendary activities? No, not really, because you still have other buffs that will still pair to this. Things like Radiant, for example, you're still going to benefit from it. So, yes, maybe someone next to you who fires a faster firing weapon, let's just say an SMG at a +10% damage, and you're sitting over there with an SMG at 600 rounds per minute versus 900 rounds for your partner. I mean, yes, he's getting out an extra 300 rounds per minute. I get that. But you're not really losing out to the sheer damage. You're losing out more to the sheer volume of bullets you're able to spread around the battlefield. So when you're thinking about damage and you're thinking about weapon stat, and some people are saying, oh, I'm going to spec into weapons. I'm not going to worry about anything because my weapons are going to carry me the rest of the way. No, they won't. Your weapons will not carry you all the way. The weapons will directly affect certain damages that they produce, but they're not going to carry you. You still need to have your grenade. You still need to have your melee attacks. You still need to have your super for bosses and things like that. So if you spec into weapons and ignore a lot of the other ones that I just went through, you're not really balancing yourself out. In fact, I could make an argument that you're actually hurting yourself. Your abilities are going to be what makes your gameplay. That's the whole point of being a guardian, is you get to use your abilities to carry you the entire way. Your weapons are more for when you're pinned down and you're just laying into a boss for 30 seconds because it's DPS time. Is it really going to make a difference when you're sprinting through the EDZ doing public events just trying to rank up? No. Is it going to make a difference when you're sprinting through legendary ops and when you're sprinting through the campaign and you're in Matter Spark? No. Is it going to make a difference in PvP? Maybe. But so if I'm telling you how to balance your character right now so that you can get through pretty much any activity without necessarily having to worry about weapon spikes for damage resistances for your armor and things of that nature, your balance is going to be your powers. Now, the easiest way to balance out all of your abilities, so to speak, is to get to a T7. That means a 70 or above in any of these stats. The exception to that would probably be weapons right now. Now, that's not to say that, having a 10% additional weapon damage bump isn't going to be useful. But think about it logically. If you're only getting 60% super energy return from any, orb pickup, for example, as opposed to the 100% you would be getting in previous seasons just by picking up that orb, that puts you at a disadvantage. Same thing with grenade, same thing with melee, same thing with arguably even health and class ability. So the weapons is going to be the one that I think at the beginning you're going to want to maybe wait. You still want it to be at least a 30, okay? But I don't really think there's going to be a situation where someone's literally running around with a 5 in the stats counter for weapons, okay? I just don't think that's realistic. So I guess technically it could be a 10, but I mean, by now you're at least understanding that balancing your armor, balancing your stats is going to only balance you out and get you back your abilities faster. And that's the whole point, is getting your abilities back faster. You're always going to have your weapons. You're always going to be able to dump another bullet into an enemy. You're not always going to have your grenade ready. You're not always going to have your melee ready. You're not always going to have your super ready. And maybe you have builds that have spams of each of these. But again, those old spam builds are not going to be the same spam builds if you have a less than a T7 in, let's just say, your melee stat. You're not going to get the conduction times buff to your melee, your grenade, and your class ability energy, as well as your super energy, from running around with Crown of Tempest and just lightning surging all your enemies. You'll be able to spam your lightning surge up to a certain point, but if your melee is lacking and you're only getting 75% of the 100% you're used to getting for energy return, it's not going to matter if your weapons is higher or not, because your weapons aren't your lightning surge. Your lightning surge is your lightning surge. You get other benefits from using lightning surge. And yes, you can make the argument, well, if I put the right, weapon on Durf, I'm going to be able to do all the same things, but just through my weapons. Yes, but I mean, really, how often are you hunkered down behind a rock just shooting at a boss for 30 seconds when you're running around in the galaxy? Almost never. In fact, most of you are probably trying to speed run through all these activities to get more armor drops so that you can level up your armor and ultimately your light level. You see me, I'm at power level 44, and you saw the intro video where I had 200 plus kills for a battleground. Both of those people were higher level than me as far as power level. Why was I able to do more with less? And the reason is balance. Balance. That should be your focus, your number one focus on whatever character you're starting off with, whatever character you're trying to get through activities with. If you don't focus on balance, you're going to find yourself at some point hitting your grenade button, hitting your melee button, picking up an orb of power, hoping to get some health, and you're going to be sitting there like, well, that was very underwhelming because you didn't focus on balance. Don't worry about the weapon stat right now. We have plenty of time to spec into that at the higher levels. Get yourself balanced so that you can get to those old 100 levels or old 100% regeneration levels from past seasons before you start deciding, okay, for this season and this character, I'm going to focus on these 3 stats and I hope I get there. You can get there with theoretically almost all of them. You know, if I had the ability to take 37 away from strength and put 37 into my class, I would do it. You know why? Because that would put me at 7 and 7, which means I get 100% of my class ability regeneration and I still get 100% of my melee regeneration. That's the point, is balancing. You want a balanced character to start yourself off, because regardless of what activity you're going into, the energy recharge rates and the benefits you get from each are just going to be different. So if you're watching this video and you're sitting there going, Durf, all of these stats, all of these, like, I've looked at charts online, I've read Reddit, I have been on YouTube. None of these people are really explaining to me why I should spec into this versus that. That's because we're all still trying to figure it out. We're still trying to figure it out who we're going to be this season. The artifact is shaping the meta. The different stun capable weapons are shaping the meta. The different play styles are shaping the meta. We've got 3 new exotics between Titan, Hunter, and Warlock shaping the proverbial meta. We're still figuring out. This expansion has not even been out for a week yet. Okay, so keep that in mind. It hasn't even been out for a month yet. After a month, people are going to have a pretty good idea of what they're gravitating to if you're playing regularly. You may not even need a month to get there, maybe a couple weeks. But having balance in your stats is going to help you figure that out faster than if you're taking, let's just say like this summer right here. Okay, let's say that I love this gunner armor. I get plus 30. Well, I'm going to have to sacrifice health, melee, and super in order to get there. So if I'm constantly equipping every new piece of gear that I'm getting, and I'm constantly changing up my stats, I'm never going to know what I like. I am never, ever, ever going to know this works better for me. This works worse for me. Looking at this just from a stat standpoint, going from a 57 total stat to a 82 total stat, I think is going to be beneficial. Is it a tier level armor piece? No. But does it really matter when your abilities are coming back at the rate that you not only expect them to, but maybe compared to previous seasons are arguably better? Are you concerned with the extra 2% PvE melee damage if you're finally able to get your melee up to 100% regeneration rate based on 100 from last season? No. So when you're looking at this from a standpoint of what makes the most sense, are you getting tier 5 drops? Are you getting tier 4 drops? No. Nobody is. I mean, if you're grinding to 400 and you're at 400, yeah, you're getting those higher tier drops. But are you getting those right now? You're not. So what are you worried about stat spikes for? Get balanced and get into the game and get all of those quests done. Get your XP grind on, max out your rewards pass, etc., etc., etc. Once you get all that done, then we can revisit getting builds the way that you want them to be. Then we can revisit 3 different stat spikes versus tuning and modding and all that other good stuff. Then we can worry about, once you get to that T3 level, that 200 to 400 level, once you get to that 300 level, the 300 to 400 level, once you get to 400, then you can get as specific as you want. So I'm sorry that this is a little bit long-winded, but this should be as balanced as possible with the exception of weapons. Weapons are still going to mow down red bars and most yellow bars. They just are. So why are you worrying about weapons right now? Worry about your ability regens, because your ability regens are going to help you when you get into tight situations more so than your weapons. Because you know what your abilities don't need to do? They don't need to reload. They just need to recharge. So if you have passive recharge rates at highest levels possible, or at least a 100% melee energy regen, 100% grenade energy regen, 100% super energy regen, you're not going to be suffering every time you sweat to pick up an orb of power or generate an orb of power. You're going to get the most benefits right away, and anything beyond that is just icing on your cake. So I'm hoping that kind of makes sense. I am so sorry that this was long-winded, but it's just been a passion of mine because I'm looking at people who are saying, well, you want to spec into, here, I'll give an example. You want to spec into Aeon Renewal because it's got benefits to it. It's got, 2-piece force converter, 4-piece reactive booster. That's what you want. You want to be able to, after a final blow with a rocket or grenade launcher, sprint for a short time to gain speed booster. Who cares? Who literally cares? Is that going to make your melee recharge faster? Is that going to give you your grenade back faster? Is that going to give you your super back faster? No. And even if it did, you still have to meet the criterias of the thresholds. So thresholds and balance are going to carry you through the legendary campaign. They're going to carry you through the portal. They're going to carry you through special ops and pinnacle ops and whatever else kind of, adjective you want to put before the operation that you're running. Balance is going to carry you through until you get to those higher tier levels where gear is actually dropping with legitimate stat bumps. Getting a 57 piece of armor, getting a roll that's 57 stats total, yeah, it might fit you right now, but I promise you, compared to a 75 or a 70, it's not going to fit you later. So don't sweat over what you're getting. Just focus on your light level. Focus on powering yourself up. When I get a piece of armor that is, so right now I got 45. The next piece of armor that I get that's 50, it's going right into here. If it's a blue armor or it's a rare armor or legendary armor, I don't care because I know it's not going to be a high enough tier to really change fundamentally the way that I play. So I hope that kind of explains the difference in how you should be perceiving these stats. Yeah, am I wigged out that I have 107 in something and it actually benefits me, and I've got 36 in something and it might actually hurt me? Yeah, a little bit. But look at what I do have. I have 70 plus, 70 plus, 70 plus, 70 plus, and almost 70. So I'm already getting 4 benefits at the same time that I couldn't necessarily get from previous seasons if you think about it logically. And every single stat on top of that is just icing on the cake. So if I go down to 106 here, that's going to take me down in my ability energy regeneration. If I go up to 85 here in my grenade, I'm going to get additional grenade energy. Now, is 1% going to matter out of 143? No, but you get the idea. Any extra over 100% is going to be icing on your cake. So just get to 100%. And you won't have to sweat as hard to get your abilities back, which means you'll be able to play more balanced, which means in certain situations, you won't have to wonder, man, I'd really love to have my grenade here more often. Man, I'd really love to spam lightning surge. Why not both? You can do it. You just got to kind of understand how balance affects everything now. All of these orbs of power, all of these font mods, all of these other things, they're all going to play into how you get passive abilities back, or how you get your energies back passively. But in order to get passive energy back from orb pickup, you have to have some kind of scalar like grenade energy regeneration that puts you at 100%. So every time you pick up a orb of power, you get 143% of the potency of what you would get if you were at a T10 in past seasons. So if this section confused you, feel free to rewind and listen to this rant all over again. And I don't mean to rant, but I see so many people concerned about different armor types and, oh, I'm only getting rare armor right now. Well, yeah, everyone's only getting rare armor right now. We're not in tier 5 armor status right now. If you did find anything helpful at this point, hopefully you can take this and shape your Guardian the next time you log in and really kind of see what I'm talking about with the balance. Balance is going to carry you through all the activities that you could possibly find yourself in for the first couple of weeks. After the first couple of weeks and after a few build videos of mine, we're going to be getting into, the specifics. But it's not worth troubling yourself and losing sleep over, oh, well, I want to try to get to that level 200. Why? What is that going to benefit you? You're going to be missing out on other stats, and you need those other stats to get to those tier 4 and tier 5 level armor drops anyways. All right, so there you have it. Edge of Fate for beginners and how to set your character up to have a respectable build with respectable power regeneration and the ability to seamlessly switch through different activities without necessarily having to worry about switching up your armor. The common theme, as was described is, of course, balance. Until you get used to the different stat distributions for the armor, it's important to understand that getting everything that you're hoping that you want to get from your build, regardless of the class, regardless of the element, or your typical playstyle, makes sense, at least logically, and you get the returns that you're hoping for in comparison to what you may be used to from previous seasons. There is a lot to digest. During the power grind, you're going to get a lot of different armor drops. The problem is that until you get to those higher levels, those armor drops may not really make you bat an eyelash, and you're going to need to play with armor that either you've already acquired, or maybe you do get lucky and get a couple of pieces from the new season that make a lot of sense for what you're doing and or hopefully balance you out. Again, 70 is the new 100. That's what you got to keep in the back of your mind. So when it comes to power regeneration, we're talking about regeneration from all sources, and we're also focusing on the fact that as you level up the artifact, as you level up your rewards pass, and as you increase in your light level, you're going to be getting better armor drops. You're going to be reaching those higher tiers relatively quickly if you play consistently. So it's important to have at least a general understanding of the builds that you are running, whether you are switching from elements and kinetic style builds, or possibly melee or grenade spam style builds, or maybe you like your super as much as I do. It doesn't matter. Having balance is going to make all of this just a lot easier. So if you did find anything helpful in this video, please consider liking and subscribing. If you know a Guardian out there who is just absolutely confused and maybe feels that trying to set their character up and all the different stat distributions don't make sense to them anymore, and they're confused and maybe a little bit wigged out by looking at not having hundreds in any of their stats and thinking that their builds might not be good enough for the activities that they might be running, please consider sharing this video with them or send them my way. My goal is to help as many people as possible. As we level up, as we continue to grow in this new season, I'm going to, of course, be coming out with specific builds for specific characters. I've already received a number of requests for different builds, so don't worry, those are on the way. But I think what's most important here in the beginning stages of Edge of Fate is just setting up your character for success, getting that XP grind going, understanding how the portal works, making sure your ghost mods make sense, and how to use the armor and the weapons that get dropped to level your character up. And in turn, helping your character just have as much balance as possible so that regardless of wherever you're at, you still get the returns that you are used to getting, or at least close to. And that's kind of the name of this little mini series. It's not going to be perfect yet, okay? You're not going to have the perfect build, the perfect setup, the perfect idea. Everyone is still getting used to how it all blends together because, again, we're all new to the Edge of Fate in terms of what it offers. So having something like a guide where you can kind of maybe just look at your character and go, okay, I can see how this will work. I can make this work. Yes, it might not be the most powerful in weapons or melee spam or grenade spam or, class ability or health regeneration or whatever, but with this build, I can take it into a battleground like what you see on the screen. Know that I'm going to be able to compete, know that I'm going to be able to deal solid damage, and know that I'm not going to feel underwhelmingly powered. And that's kind of the name of the game, getting this set up for your future success while not feeling like you're just moving at such a molasses style pace while doing it. So anyways, guys, my next builds, or my next videos, I guess I meant to say, are going to be more build specific. I'm going to bring it to you guys as best I can. There's a lot to uncover, so just bear with me as I go through the different characters. If you haven't gotten through the campaign yet, keep grinding away. If you haven't gotten to that 400 light level, soft cap, or I guess hard cap technically, then keep it going. All it's going to take is you just playing consistently and just making sure you infuse your armor, spending your time well will help you just take advantage of everything we've gone through in this little mini series. So again, thank you guys for your patience, your support, and I appreciate the feedback I got on my previous video. And don't worry, I've received all the requests and plan to get to them as far as builds for the Edge of Fate here in the coming weeks. Thanks, guys. I will see you next time. Take care.